All right, hello, welcome back, everybody. PayPal and Patreon are down below if you want to support me. Only do so if you actually can. And apologies for any audio glitches. My mic is beginning to fail after about 8 years of use. So, the power grid situation continues to deteriorate in South Africa. For anyone unaware, South Africa's power grid has gotten pretty close to just abject failure, with things constantly breaking down and only really getting temporary fixes and repairs due to lack of funding to upkeep it and lack of the funding that is given to upkeep it actually making it to the process of upkeeping it due to insanely poor setup and design and also insane levels of corruption at every level of the industry and the government itself. The total details and everything behind that, if you want to see a full breakdown of it, are in the video that I did a couple weeks back. The link should be up in the corner. So that will explain the actual how and why behind everything. So go watch that. But as for the totality of it, it had recently gotten to the point that entire chunks of the country, sometimes even half of the country, would be in complete blackouts at any given time for about 12 hours a day. That is half of the entire day. Now, the South African power industry prefers to call this load shedding, but load shedding is a coping term. However, it's not just a random decision, it's because of the country's power industry's utter failure to maintain a power grid and power generation system. They cannot actually provide power and electricity to the entire country at any given time, getting quickly worse and worse each year over the last 3 or 4, with the number of days each year on which these mass blackouts or quote unquote load shedding are initiated have grown over the last several years from about 50 days a year up to 100 and now in excess of 150. And so obviously you can imagine this is really bad for industry, business, commerce, life in general for just the people in the country. And this is one of the primary factors as to why the country has become so economically stagnant. And so it all spirals down and gets worse. So recently, several weeks back, the government the government used emergency funding and threw $4 billion at the problem and told the power industry to do whatever it could to fix it. And so the power industry fixed some stuff with however much of that 4 billion was actually left over after everyone had taken their portion of it, taken their cut. And they were able to fix everything up a bit to where they reduced the blackouts from 12 hours a day down to only 10 hours a day for a few weeks until a couple days ago, where everything kept degrading as it has been, and it's just fell back apart again and has now gotten even worse than it was before those fixes. With the power industry, they're announcing that they're going to have to step up the blackouts even further now for whatever portions of the country they implement them in, not the 10 that they reduced it down to, not the 12 that it was before, but 13 hours per day. And even any repair, replacement, and upkeep efforts they try to do with whatever funding they're able to get for it is being even further hampered now by a extremely rapid rise in sort of metal scrapping raids on power substations, transformer units, where people are just busting in, switching everything off, and ripping out all the copper to sell in very frequent events happening all over the place now, and being kind of somewhat understandable since South Africa's unemployment rate, you can see, is about a third of the country. So, when they're left in desperation for extended periods of time, people will resort to whatever they have to try to earn money to survive. And of course, their country's power grid being in such a state of disrepair and disarray and being so ineffective and the destructive effect it has on their economy kind of, exacerbates the joblessness problem. And so the situation is going nowhere good, and it's become pretty obvious it's just going to keep spiraling. And this, combined with a number of other issues in South Africa, is why they're kind of on the likely impending collapse list, and why they're usually one of the first two brought up in my subject matter that I usually talk about in some videos and most frequently in live streams, about how only one, maybe for a time two members of BRICS are actually going to economically and politically survive in their current form. And so if everything we just went over was not a hint enough, it's not going to be South Africa. All right, that's it for this one. So like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't already. There's dozens, hundreds of other episodes about all kinds of issues and stuff you can watch. PayPal and Patreon links are down there if you want to support me. Only do so if you actually can. Or go subscribe to my cat's channel too. But no matter what happens to me, may God bless and protect all of you, and I will see you all around next time.